Ironsworn is one of the most popular solo RPGs on the market, and I played it for about a month before I felt ready to record this review. Here's the thing. While I loved most of the mechanics, I didn't have as good a time as I thought I would have. And it took me quite a while to figure out why that was. So in this video, I want to talk about what I really like about Ironsworn, but also the few things that I really struggled with. Welcome to I Roll Alone. My name is Daniel. And before I start going over these different points, I want to give some context. If you are familiar with my work, you might have read my actual plays on Substacks and are thinking, wait a minute, there are only 6 sessions. Yes. The thing is, I sometimes played really short sessions, and sometimes it just took a really long time to play. I'm still fairly new to solo RPGs and still trying to find my flow. Creativity is as much a skill as any other, and well, it needs to be practiced. So with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the great things about Ironsworn. One of the biggest challenges of solo play, or rather, something that takes additional time in playing, is setting a difficulty. What's the target number your action roll needs to beat? There are a number of ways to solve this. Some games, like Dragonbane or Call of Cthulhu, use a roll under mechanic, where you need to roll less than your ability score. Others use a set target number like Dungeon World or Kalarath. The third option I know of is using a dice pool mechanic, where you roll a bunch of dice and only a 6 counts as a hit. Ironsworn uses none of them. Instead, you roll 2d10 and 1d6. And when you roll, you add your modifier, for example hard, to your action die. So that would be a 6. Then you need to look if you beat your so-called challenge die. Right now I have a 6 against a 6 and a 1, which means I have a weak hit. If you beat both of them, for example like this, it's a strong hit. If I beat none of them, for example on a 10 and an 8, it's a miss and I have to pay the price. Rather than a set number, this introduces a level of randomness to your challenge, sort of like a game within your game. Theoretically, you can also use this to inform your fiction. Why was this challenge easy? Or why was it hard? The true genius of this method, however, is not the action roll by itself. In my opinion, it is the combination with the momentum mechanic. Every time you succeed in a move, you gather momentum, which is shown here on the character sheet. And right now my momentum is at 5, and if I roll a strong hit, I might move it up to 7 or 8. At any point, I can use this momentum to cancel out a result of my challenge die that is lower than my momentum. So, if I have a 7 and maybe a 5, and I rolled a 1, and now I have a miss. If I use my momentum, I can cancel out both of these dice and turn it into a strong hit. Then my momentum resets to 2, and my chances of failure increase. Narratively and mechanically, I think this is just an awesome way to impact the story. Through your successes, you gather momentum, which you can then leverage, and when you do, you're not as much in control anymore. So like I said, your chances of failure increases. But the action dice and momentum by itself, or the challenge dice and the momentum by itself, are nothing if you cannot utilize them. Sean Tompkin, the author of Ironsworn, did something that is really cool. And to be honest, I'm not familiar with other PBTA-style games, so I don't know if he reinvented the wheel here, but he created a set of moves that can be used to basically resolve any situation a game can throw at you. So this is the Ironsworn Lodestar supplement, which is free, by the way, and a great resource for any RPG, really. And there are things from simple moves as compelling a person, I actually don't know where that is, here, to rolling initiative, to fighting, to traveling, and also broader moves like face danger and secure an advantage. And especially the latter two, face danger and secure an advantage, I think are very, very genius because they can be used to impact the game that I haven't really seen in any other RPG, really. For example, I can take a moment to prepare myself, maybe climb on the top of a small hill to better position before shooting my bow. I can then secure an advantage, and depending on my level of success, I gain a mechanical benefit in the form of advantage to my next roll and maybe even more momentum. Face danger is basically anything from sneaking, rushing past enemies, or blocking an incoming attack, put into one single mechanic, making it quick and easy to use. So, when all of this is so great, why didn't I enjoy the game more? It's not like I hated the game, but I also wasn't super excited to keep playing. And it took me a while to figure out why, which is why the video took longer to make than I thought it would. I just didn't know what it was that bothered me. And it was only when I started playing Daggerheart that I figured out why. I just didn't like the genre, and I didn't like the setting. Ironsworn is set in this low to mid fantasy world of iron, vows, and bonds. It is very much inspired by Northern mythology, and personally, I'm just much more of a high fantasy kind of person. It was just missing a lot of the tropes that I like. It is also missing a lot of the abilities that I'm used to from playing D&D, and it's overall less resource-oriented than I enjoy. Like I mentioned, I'm still very new to solo RPGs, and relying on familiar tropes is something that could have helped me with some of the challenges that I had when figuring out where to move the story. I couldn't really do that here. That is not really the game's fault, but mine. It's my fault. And in fact, there are supplements that you can use to turn this into a high fantasy kind of game, and it's definitely something that I want to try in the future. I might also check out the other games by Sean Tompkin, like Starforged and Sundered Isle, that use a different setting. Maybe when I'm a little bit more experienced in solo RPGs. But honestly, I think it was a good lesson to learn. However, that is not the only thing I struggled with. Earlier, I mentioned the moves that you can use, but those are in fact not the only moves in the game. And the other ones were really not something I enjoyed. When you start a quest or a journey in Ironsworn, let me move that and show you how that looks. You start a track, and every time you reach a milestone, you mark a box depending on the difficulty. A milestone is just something arbitrary you decide, which is important for achieving the goal you set. For example, it can be finding a rumor about the artifact you're looking for, finding the location, or whatever makes sense in the context of your quest. And that is all well and good, but at the end, you make a progress move. And you roll your challenge die against your progress track. So right now, I rolled a 9 and a 1, and looking at, for example, my quest here, that would be considered a weak hit. So there is a complication with fulfilling my quest. While I think that in theory this is a super cool idea, it made pacing very difficult for me. And I really need some way to pace my story from high tension to lower tension. What happened is that every time I was about to finish a quest or a journey, I had a chance of a complication. And sometimes I just didn't want that. Sometimes I just wanted to finish my quest and keep going with the next one. So what I did every time was I just played my track until it was full. Well, except for here, really. But I don't really think that was the intention behind it. The intention behind it was, I think, to keep surprising yourself when playing and driving the narrative forward through complications and conflict. For me, it was just a source of stress, to be honest. And if I ever return to Ironsworn or any of the other games, I think this is something I will probably play without. Now, I spoke about a lot of negative things, which begs the question, should you play Ironsworn? Yes, I think you should. Besides everything I mentioned, it taught me an important lesson. Usually when you play, you want to succeed, right? It's only natural. And when playing in a group, you don't really need to worry about what happens if you fail, because your GM does that for you. When I played Ironsworn, I failed a lot. A lot of weak hits, a lot of misses. And while it was difficult at first to create my own demise, the story got better for it. The game taught me to embrace failure, if you will. It's still difficult, it's still very difficult sometimes, but I am getting better. And even when I say I didn't enjoy it as much, I'm very happy I gave it a shot. There are many other cool mechanics that I didn't even cover here. It talks about a way to introduce a scene challenge. It talks about how to let the mechanics impact the fiction and vice versa. And the core game and its supplements come with an amazing collection of random tables that can be used for any game, really. And, well, they're free. I mean, you have literally nothing to lose because you don't need to pay anything. And most of all, it has an incredible community on Discord and Reddit where you can just go and ask questions. Even the author himself is active there and actually gave me some pretty good advice when I struggled. So, in conclusion, check out Ironsworn. Definitely check out Ironsworn. And when you want some advice on how to get started, you can have a look at my video right here. See you next time.